I want to thank all those who have contributed to our debate today on housing. It is the great civil rights issue of our time, the ability to live in safety and security. And Minister, we thank you for not opposing the motion and also for your comments on the Labour Party. You made reference to solutions on a European level. I believe that's where the Housing Minister is at the moment, and we agree with you there. We believe that the government needs to be working on a European level to find pan-European solutions in terms of affordable housing. We need to change the state aid rules to enable local authorities and national governments to fund housing solutions. We need to have a greater crackdown on the scourge of short-term letting, which is really hurting many European cities, and particularly hurting Dublin. Minister, I'd say in terms of Dublin, as a modern European capital, it really is falling apart on your watch. We have, as my colleague Deputy Aodhán has said, we have an inability to keep basic public servants being able to live and work in Dublin. I've visited schools that are operating on 45% staffing capacity because they just can't get teachers. Teachers can't afford to live in Dublin. It's similar in the healthcare system. It's similar in An Garda Síochána. We just fundamentally cannot get people to live and work in Dublin, and we have constantly called for you to reflect on what has been happening in London for 100 years of having a London allowance, a weighted allowance for public servants and others who need to work and live in Dublin. But it is crushing for a young person, a young couple, as we all meet every day of the week, as we knock on doors, to see multi-generations of the same household at absolute breaking point because they can't break out of that. There's a level of humiliation living in your 30s in your parents' home, living still in your childhood bedroom. You cannot form a relationship. You cannot raise a family on that basis. And the last point I want to make to you, Minister, is about children. In fact, on the very formation of this Dáil, the very first document produced was on a document for the new Republic, and stated that the first duty of the Republic would be for the welfare of the children. Now, Christmas, less than 18 months ago, and the number of children in homelessness was 3,500. And at that time, there was a national outcry about the numbers of children in homelessness. And we had at that stage the no-fault eviction ban still in vogue. And you have told us, as others have said, that it wasn't working. It was adding to homelessness. But since it has gone, in the time since Christmas 2022, we now have a homeless children statistic of 4,100. It's gone up 600 in little more than a year. And I want to impress on you how crushingly humiliating that is for every single child. Because we're not just talking about numbers, as Deputy Aodhán has said, on a sheet. We're not talking about sort of empty strategies that are going to potentially fix this in 5 or 10 or 15 years' time. We're talking about 4,100 stolen childhoods. We're talking about stolen dreams, and we're talking about the absolute humiliation of a child in that circumstance. Can you imagine what flushes through a child's head when they're in school every day and the topic of homework comes up? And they don't even have that. And that is 4,100 children who are in that scenario. And that has been added to purely and simply, well, not purely and simply, but certainly has been compounded by your decision to lift the eviction ban. And the stats speak for themselves. 3,500 almost a year ago, now 4,100. And there is no homeless agency, there's no advocacy group, and there's no family with children who will tell you that that was a good call, that that was the right thing to do. So, Minister, while we appreciate that you're not opposing our motion, and we appreciate some of the comments you've made, and that others have made in terms of the Labour Party motion today, that is cold comfort for any child who is on that list of 4,100 children that need accommodation, or those families living in multi-generational situations in a family home in Dublin, or those public servants and others who can't afford to rent here in this city. You have solutions, but you've also not taken on board what we have been constantly saying about putting the humanity back at the heart of this debate, and to realise the massive responsibility you have when you take decisions such as ending the eviction ban and when you don't properly ramp up investment in social and affordable housing.